Welcome back to Newsmaker Live. I'm Clinton Reynolds, and joining me this evening is the Director of Corrections, Hilary Herman. And we have been speaking about a conference that has been ongoing here this week, the 7th Annual Conference and Business Meeting of Correctional Directors and Prison Officers, taking place right here on St. Lucia. And as Mr. Herman was explaining, this meeting was originally scheduled to be held in Jamaica, but because of some unforeseen circumstances, we took up the responsibility, and you being president of the association right now. Before we go into what you might describe as juicy stuff, let's talk about your presidency. You're new to the area. This is your first year as president. How has it been going so far?
Well, it's my first year. That's why I couldn't let the conference be canceled. Wouldn't look good on my record. So we had to make sure that happened. And like I said, it was just not possible without some of our partners. They really helped put it together. As you know, the resources are very limited, and the hosting the conference was approved under the condition that there was no St. Lucia dollars spent. So that was obviously a restriction on me, and so we had to find outside assistance to help us put it together.
And you got that, and it has been successful.
It has been successful.
I want to talk about the overcrowding issue, alternatives to sentencing in particular for St. Lucia, because over the years we moved from Her Majesty's prisons to the Borderley Correctional Facility between 2002-2003, and the same problems that we had, or some of the same problems we had at HMP, you continue to realize at Borderley. Why do you think that is the case? When you have new accommodation, you have more modern facilities, you have a situation where everything is a textbook prison, physically.
Right. Well, I think if you go back to the basics, we built a brand new prison, but we moved everyone from Her Majesty's prison into the new Borderley Correctional Facility. Basically what you did was move the Her Majesty prison south. That's basically what you did. There was nothing, there was no structural staff changes that was done. You had all of the staff that came from Her Majesty's prison came to Borderley. We had some improved security, but the personnel was there. Some of the tools we needed to create the new environment was not there, so we end up just basically operating with what we had. So it was there was very little changes you could make with the same structure, same everything.
But the overcrowding issue, one of the major points that was raised during that period is that when you move to this new facility, the overcrowding problem would be addressed to some extent, and we filled up the prison and we were overcrowded within a year or two.
Well, I think keeping in mind that the intent when Borderley was built that there would be alternative sentencing come as part of the package, because what happened is, the facility, we have 450 beds, and when we moved into Borderley, we had in excess of 400 inmates. So when we moved in, we were pretty much filled up. But the intent was to start the alternative sentencing, but that piece was never added on, because it takes supervision and it takes a whole small bureaucracy to run that piece, which was not available to us.
But it has been 10 years already. What is the holdup?
Funding. I mean, it's as real as it can get. We need additional funding.
But is that on you, or does the legislative framework need to change first of all, and then the funding come? Because I mean, we can access funding, but if there's no legislative framework, or if there's no will on the part of our legislators, then nothing will change.
Correct.
You're agreeing with me, right?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm wholeheartedly agreeing with you. It is correct. Yes.
Now another issue. I mean, probably it has not been discussed in detail, but the fact that when the Border Correctional Facility was open, HMP was just shut down.
Correct.
So you had a situation where you had holding cells, but they were made obsolete, redundant, and no use of them until recently, where now they're holding some prisoners there. Do you think that this was a major blunder on the part of the administrators to shut down HMP?
Well, again, it's part of the structure of the facility. We did not have the staff to run both facilities. It just wasn't there. There was some talk of keeping the remands down in the old HMP prison and moving only sentence up to Bordelais. That would have worked fine had we have the staffing to do it, but it just wasn't possible at the time. You know, so what the police lockup became the old remand center within the HMP became the police lockup.
And has anything changed? Because I know every time you've been here, you've been asking for staff. How is that situation?
Well, you know, it continues to be something that we look at. But however, I cannot tell you today that I need 50, 100 staff. I think some of the issues that I have internally that I need to fix is, first I need to fix attendance. We have an attendance issue. So I have to make sure that I fix attendance before I can go out and say I need staff. And that's a whole other ball game.
Well, you're at the prison. Probably you should just lock some people to keep them there. make sure you increase your attendance. That's one way of looking at it. But I mean, it's a culture issue. You know, if we are to get serious about it, it's something that is endemic. You know, we see that in all walks of life, all spheres of life here in St. Lucia, that people are not as serious about, you know, things that should be taken seriously, including attendance at work, you know, school. We see it from the school system, and it goes up.
Well, I think and the start of this is this conference this week, professionalizing our staff, picking our staff, trying to get the idea that a correctional officer is just a job. We have to look at it as a career, and I think part of what we had this week was seeing professional corrections personnel, professional correction experts who come in and tell them and explain to them the benefits, the how noble a profession it is, and the things that can be done in that profession. I think that should uplift our staff and make them see what they do in different light, and I think that's a good start.
Do you think that, considering that this is a career, or should be considered a career, that the entry requirements are too low, that the bar should be set a little higher, so that the people who are coming in as correctional officers would have had that discipline or that understanding that, you know, this is a career, this is something that I should be serious about, therefore I should come every day, I should be there on time, and these kinds of things?
Well, I don't know that is a problem, because currently our requirements are 5 CXCs, including English and math, which is a fairly decent level. However, I think our vetting process needs to get better, and I think we need a better disciplinary system. And I think the absence of a better disciplinary system is what creates some of the problems that we have.
Now, I know the police have a similar problem, because you are under the government, obviously. Any disciplinary issues are not handled by yourself.
Correct.
They're handled by the Public Service Commission.
Correct.
I know this is a sticking point for you, because it ties your hands. You're very limited as to what you can do. Pretty much you can do nothing. Correct.
But, you know, it's not about what I can do. If the system worked, I have no problem with it. You know, if the system, at least you saw results, and you know, and I think, and I must say, I've seen some progress over the last several months. I have seen some progress, but if the system worked, if there was instant results or semi-instant results, and that, you know, the staff actually saw that the adjudication process was working, then I think we would see a different understanding, different mentality within the prison.
Now you say you've seen some changes, some
Yes.
positive changes over
Yes.
the last few
I
months.
have, yes.
What do you owe that to? What do you think is responsible for those changes?
Well, I've seen that cases are being called a lot sooner, and it's I've actually seen in the last couple of months I've actually seen some results of some cases. So however that was attributed by or whom, or whatever made that difference, I don't know. But I have seen some changes in the last couple of months.
Now, going back to the overcrowding and the alternative sentencing, what powers do you possess? In the U.S., for example, COs, directors of corrections, superintendents, they're able to say, okay, we're crowded here. So even though you have not satisfied your sentence, you need to go home because we need to make space for people who have committed probably heinous crimes or offenses which are more serious. Do you have that power, and would it help if you had that power to say, okay, you're here for 5 grams of marijuana, you know, you don't need to be at bodily. Let's make way for a convicted rapist or a murderer.
Well, I mean the court send them, and it's our job to hold them until they've completed their sentence. Of course, you know, we have the remission system, and that is the 1/3 of their time for good behavior, and that is what the law provides right now, and that's what we have.
And that's all you have.
Yes.
I heard you speak in the news this evening about another issue, which is the court. Bodily was built, modern facility, courtroom put in there, which would negate travel for prisoners outside of the compound.
Yes.
But you were lamenting that it doesn't work because the court is not in session. You use the court, but for other purposes. Tell us a bit about that. Expand on that point.
Well, initially back in 2002, 2003, 2003 and 2004, there was a magistrate assigned to that court. So it was convenient for us to just move inmates from the inside the compound to the courthouse, particularly the remanded inmates who required to see a magistrate at the time every 7 days, every 14 days. And that worked. When that magistrate was reassigned, one was never replaced. So all we had was we started the transportation back and forth to and from Castries and the south, and that continues today. And if we can get that reinstituted, I mean, that would save a lot of man hours on the road, and obviously fuel and wear and tear on our vehicles.
What needs to happen for this to be done?
Judiciary. The court needs to assign a magistrate and make sure it happens.
And you have made that request for a magistrate to be assigned, have you?
Well, as you know, there are limited magistrates there. And of course, you know, the Borderley Court is probably the newest court on our island, and it's not used. So, I mean, and the courts are aware that it's there and available, but they need to use it.
But you were also making the point that lawyers don't really fancy coming down to Borderley to represent people who have been accused of crimes.
That was initially, I think that was an issue when we first started, and I don't know that was ever resolved. But lawyers do travel to and from Viewport, so I don't know that should be a problem, but it was a problem at one point because cases were adjourned very frequently because either the attorney wasn't there or something, or the magistrate didn't show up or something.
Now, in terms of Borderley, you know, you have a mix of high-risk prisoners. You have people who have committed just minor offenses in society's eyes and stuff. How do you manage? How do you manage your staff so that you can take care of all those people within the same compound? You know, notwithstanding that you have various cell blocks.
Right. Well, as you know, the way our facility is designed, we have 9 residential units, which are all self-contained, and we're able to do some classification in that we're able to do some segregation of offenders to keep one set from another. So we're able to manage it that way, and based on the layout of the facility, we're able to operate with minimal staff just because of the layout of the facility, and that has worked for us. Because as you can recall, you cannot recall any major incidents that we've had, and I think we could attribute that to the layout of the facility.
And obviously, you still have that same situation where you have under 10 female inmates.
Correct.
You have over 500 male inmates. The disproportionate or disproportion in the gender of the inmates.
You think magistrates are easier on females? Are you suggesting that?
Well, I'm asking you, and then in your interaction with the female prisoners, I mean, are they as bad, quote unquote, as the male inmates that you have, or they have been sentenced, just going through it?
I think in the past we've had we've had more foreign females for carrying possession of drugs. That number has really reduced over the last 5-6 years. We've been under 10 female inmates for, I'd say, 2 years now. So I can't tell you what the reason for that is, but most of the ones we have are local female.
Now there has been some rumbling about the fact that some female inmates who have been charged and who are awaiting trial and not at the Bodley Correctional Facility, they have been released. Whose decision is that, and why is that?
That's a magistrate's decision. Is that it went to court, put a given bail, or in some cases, as you're aware, there's not a juvenile center for females. So most of those females are then released on their own recognizance. But that's where that area we have a problem. But that's those that are under 16, and that's a whole different ballgame.
And that's only those who are under 16.
Correct, because at our facility, our act prohibits us from taking anyone under 16. So there's a gap. Of course, we have the Boys Training Center for boys,
right?
But for girls under 16, we have there's no residential area for them, so they're normally released out on their own recognizance, and that may be what you were talking about.
Yes. I mean, you have younger boys there as well. I mean, young men above the age of 16 who are there,
right?
But you have separate accommodation for them. What is the age range that you have for those young men who find themselves locked up?
16 to 21.
To 21. Okay, so 5 year gap. Now there have been certain developments in the prison that would cause your stomach to churn, kind of, and I want to discuss those with you. Some of them were in the news recently, so we want to take another break on a Newsmaker Live. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the issues that you face as director, including the arrest of some of your staff members. Stay with us.